And Rob, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for this opportunity to present this thought leadership series. You're selling services wrong because everybody wants to hop on a call and hear a New Yorker tell you that you're doing something wrong. So thought that'd be a great beginning to this whole thing to kick it off. Keisha did mention a little bit about who we are, founded in 1993, based in Yonkers, as she mentioned. Although Manhattan has a huge, obvious base of customers, I thought I'd point out that a vast majority of our customers actually are in Westchester County, which is the county north of Manhattan, where Yonkers is located. So I think that a lot of what we're going to talk about today applies even if you're not like in the mecca of all activity. We hired our first full-time employee in 1998. We started to make the transition from break fix to MSP in 2007. As Keisha mentioned, I joined Progressive in 2011, and in 2014 became Director of Sales and Marketing. Now in 2019, I believe this number is even off already. I think we're 28, 29 people now, or it seems like we're growing all the time, which is fantastic. And me, I think we already covered it. Just to add that if you want to talk offline at all further about anything we talk about today, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, and the alias there is Rob Pat for Robert Patterson. Okay, get that out of the way. So part of this description, after saying that you're selling wrong, was the concept that maybe you're running into some issues where you give your presentation and people are pushing back because your price is too high or your competitors are much lower. So some of this is going to be framed around this concept of price or cost versus value. And I think we need to talk a little bit about the fact that value is one thing, and there's certain industries or commodities where you actually can put a fixed value on something. But in a lot of what we sell, we're talking about a perceived value. And the more we can bring a higher perceived value to what we're bringing to the table, the less price ends up actually being a factor. It's still a factor, but it's more diminished in the decision-making process. People are talking in their own minds about things like, will this solution fulfill my needs? Is this a better choice than other options? Can this company I'm talking to deliver? Can I afford not to do this? If you've got people thinking or prospects thinking these kind of thoughts, then you definitely are starting to kind of ramp up on that side of more perceived value. And we know that people buy in this way too. If you think about the example of cars, if a car was just to get from point A to point B, everybody would drive whatever, some economical thing that just did the job. But people buy Ferraris and people buy exotic things because there's something else going on in this perceived value. Even though in reality, I happen to own a Mustang, yay, but I had that car for 30 days and racked up enough tickets that I drive very slowly in that car. So the fact that it can go fast is irrelevant, but it has something to me to the value. So we really want to make sure we keep this in mind, though, because some of these other bullet points we're going to get into of how I think that a bunch of us are selling or have been selling completely ignore this concept and just go right to price and bullet points. So a word on pricing. How did you come up with your pricing? I know in that leap from break fix to MSP, a lot of us were sort of very nervous about what if we give this all-you-can-eat pricing? Are people going to take advantage of it? How are we going to make money? So I just throw it out there. Like, how did you come to this pricing in your mind? Did you survey your competitors? Was it a guesstimate? Did you do a thorough analysis of your past performance? Is this based on a projected cost model? Are you just winging it? Because this is a really important thing, even though it doesn't seem to address sales per se. If you're going in and your pricing is, artificially inflated, even though I say price isn't the main factor, you're making a hurdle that you have to jump over by being too high if you're trying to hedge your bet. And if you're too low in your pricing, you may win more deals, but the fact is you probably can't deliver on everything you're saying in the way that you're saying you're going to deliver at a level of profitability that's sustainable. So like I know when I am up against a competitor and they've come in at some ridiculously low number, I know what it costs to do business here, for the labor cost, the tools, and everything we say we're bundling in. There's no way somebody can do that at half the cost effectively. So we get into different conversations then. But really, if you haven't looked at this in a while, or you made your pricing because you kind of looked around at your competitors, you said, "Oh, I'll put myself somewhere in the middle," it's worth looking at again. Marketing. It's not a marketing call, but marketing as a sales tool. Let's just bring up a couple of bullets quickly on this. Your marketing, if you have good targeted marketing messages, can begin to tell you the story of why us, right out of the gate. It can help differentiate before you actually ever open your mouth, which is fantastic. It also can help educate your prospect. A lot of marketing, if done right, is kind of a sales letter, the content that you're looking at or consuming or sending out there. So just little example of this, storytelling examples. We had a referral recently, which obviously that's kind of the holy grail of referrals, what you want. But our customer gave a referral to this prospect. The prospect went to our website, downloaded our marketing materials, which were all about that difference between why you want to get out of a break-fix world and into an MSP world. By the time I got to that sales call and sat down, that prospect had that white paper on their desk, and they were telling me all the reasons why they almost felt bad that they were stuck in this break-fix relationship for so long. And they were talking my bullet points to me before I ever spoke. So let's not forget that is a way that you can use marketing as a sales tool. And of course, pre-qualify. We're going to talk a little about target market, not a ton, but you can pre-qualify. Remember, everybody isn't your customer. That's just not the way it works. If you're going to chase everybody, you're going to waste a lot of time. But you shouldn't be afraid in your marketing materials to say that. If you're not looking for companies under 10 computers or something like that, you should make that clear. Let them sort of self-select, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Let's see. So the right prospect. This is that target market conversation. I'm going to imagine that everybody who's going to look at this recording or is on this call now has heard about this. You go to your favorite search engine and download some worksheets on this and develop your target market. Clearly, as I said before, everybody's not your customer. You really need to hone in, but I don't think this is news to anybody. I want to highlight something a little bit different here when I talk about this. So everybody knows, yeah, you need to know the size. We target 15 to 50 computers, CPAs and law firms in that industry or vertical, the New York metro area, geography. I think this is all pretty obvious stuff. If you haven't done it, you need to do it. But I want you to start thinking about in that conversation of who you're talking to and the perceived value and what you can bring to the table that's more than this is, what is the mindset of this prospect? Or who can you go and where can you find the people who think more about their IT provider as a strategic partner, not just somebody who's going to fix a computer or who's going to work on budgeting with them or planning or future proofing their business. These are different mindsets of business owners. You've seen it in different slides. I've seen great materials from Microsoft in the past that has personas you can look for. Do they consider IT strategic, or is it something that's just as in the way? This is a big deal though when you start thinking about who you're going to go after. Also, do they have growth potential? A few years back, we made this one of our kind of standard questions we ask early on. And ironically, the first prospect we went to after we decided this was something we were going to talk about all the time, we got into this meeting. They were maybe 20 user network in Manhattan. We asked this, well, what are your growth plans? And the guy looked right at me and he said, we don't have any growth plans. We're all on the cusp of retirement. And if anything, we're going to shrink in size. And we're going to try to get the most out of these computers we have until that happens. Like, that's really not the prospect. That's not my customer. So we kind of bowed out of that, after that. It's just not, you got to really pick who you want to work with and think about these things. And another thought in here is, are they looking for a real partner? because that's who we're looking for. We want it long term. We want a seat at the table with the grown-ups. We want to really be part of this whole story that they're working on. And when you're having these conversations about those higher end issues, and I'm not even right now going to throw around all the buzzwords like VCIO and all this. I'm just saying, just in a more general sense, right? Are you talking about the guys who fix stuff? Are you talking about leading a conversation? It's a very different prospect. And there are some statistics out there that say out of your total addressable possible prospect pool, only 25% of those prospects think in this way. That's who you want to be talking to. Okay, moving on here. I'm going to spend a little time on this slide. I believe there's a bunch to dig into here. And the question is, are you a professional salesperson? And this quote is so overused, I figured if I use it, I'm not going to upset the balance of the universe by using it one more time. But how you do anything is how you do everything. The reason I reference this here really is sales just a necessary evil in your company? And I ask this, I think it would apply to pretty much any industry, but certainly in our industry, everybody starts as a tech, and we're really proud of that ability. We're proud of how we can configure things and geek out on things and build secure things and, make stuff tick and work. And that's kind of the thing that kind of gets us up in the morning. And sales is like, yeah, it's something you kind of have to do, right? But nobody's ever going to know how great your ops department is if your sales department doesn't get a deal closed. It's just how it is. There's no impression. Nobody has a single impression about you unless somebody, as a referral, said, these guys are great. Other than that, nobody knows how great you are at fixing things or building things or designing things. All they know on that front end is how good your marketing is and how good your sales are, or your sales team is. So, and I'd go further to say, and obviously I'm coming from the sales side of the house, but sales is the engine. I mean, sales enables you to hire more techs and to get better products and to provide better services. So we really have to take this seriously. And if you're a small enough company where you're wearing all these hats of like owner, maybe still tech and salesperson, I've seen a lot of times where if a prospect raises their hand, it's like, a sales thing. I'll deal with that as quickly, as possible. And in many ways, I'd say like sloppy as possible, which that's not what you want here. You need a real process. You need to start the whole impression you're going to leave with this prospect from the first interaction. So for what that's worth. Also, when people say that you're a natural born salesperson, I don't buy this. This is jargon to me. This doesn't make any sense to me. I think that what people mean when they say that is maybe somebody is charismatic, somebody thinks quick on their feet, somebody can tell great stories, somebody is likable. People told me for most of my life, you're a natural born salesperson. It's like, yeah, I could sell anything to anyone. But the thing is, those are traits that maybe a salesperson wants to have. They're handy things. They're great. Maybe they will help them be an amazing salesperson. But being a professional salesperson is about some of the more mundane things. Like, do you actually practice? Right? Do you sit in a room with whoever is on your sales team and role play things out? Are things scripted? Is your presentation repeatable? I mean, do you have your common objections, the answers to these common objections? Out of the last 50 sales call you went to, how many people really pulled out some kind of question or objection that you're like, wow, I never heard that before, ever? But probably not often, right? But I also would guarantee that you've walked out of sales meetings after somebody asked one of the more common questions and you said to yourself, man, last time that came up, I answered that much better, or, oh, I forgot to mention this main thing. It's because you're not practicing. I think it's also because, maybe I'll just say it, that you're not really being a professional salesperson. You're being a great IT company, and you're taking the person who's the most charismatic and saying, you're the sales guy now, go out there and sell, without the real training. And so you're not really able to stack and show that value, create the perceived value, and really get it to where when the price comes out, it's just a number. More along this line, do you get coaching? And I put it down there again at the top and bottom, like, does your company really embrace sales? Because these are two teams, sales and ops, primary teams. There's obviously finance, HR, there's important other components, but you're not in competition really, only a friendly competition. I'm going to bring in so much business, you guys are going to have to work harder. But we need both of these things to be fantastic in order to really grow and scale. Okay, sales process. Touched on it a tiny bit, but this has to be repeatable 100% of the time and followed by all 100% of the time. And those are two separate things. For many years, we were a rather successful company with not a repeatable 100% of the time sales process. We were winging it. We were printing out quotes and bringing it, reading off bullet points. I might do it one way. One of the owners might do it a different way. We were selling things, and that's great. But now that I understand the better way to do it, I understand completely why we were losing a number of deals. The deals that I would say I don't think we lose now, because we are those people who are showing up prepared and professional. And that other half is you can have the greatest sales process, just like on the tech side of the house, you can have all your beautiful and pretty sales SOPs, ops SOPs, but if nobody follows them, they're just a nice archive somewhere that don't help anyone. So we definitely have to make sure that it's followed by all and there's something to follow. Don't just give out pricing. Some of these things that are going to come up right now and these bullets, you've heard it a million times, but let it sink in relation to the idea of perceived value, right? If you call up, hey, what's your pricing? I got 50 computers. Oh yeah, that's about $3,000. Great. Click, next person. Oh, that's about $2,000. Next person, that's $1,000. Where are they going? They're going to $1,000, or maybe they like to pick the middle, but you didn't give them anything to think about in terms of value. And don't email quotes. Everybody says this all the time. Why though? Why? You're busy. You don't have time to go do all these things. So why not email the quotes? Because it's the same thing as giving out pricing, only you've done more work to gather more information, to put it in a prettier document, to email it to them, to basically get the same results. Even if you put together a fantastic proposal that's beautiful with all the words that you would ever want to say, what are the chances somebody's going to read all that, take it in exactly the way you wanted to present it to them, and then act on that? That's just not what happens. People flip to the last page and look at the number. So you want to control the process as much as you possibly can. Do present to the decision makers. How many times have you heard this? And then the common objection to this is, well, they won't let me. They said that the office manager or whatever person is deemed the influencer really is the only person I could present to. You've got some options here. You cannot present. Go find a better opportunity where you can actually talk to the people who can make the decision. That's pretty bold. I can't say that we do that very often, but understand, if you're going to go and present to the influencer, right, you're now a professional salesperson. You've got your professional sales process and your presentation, and you're going to go and present that to not the decision maker. You're going to use all that time and effort and skill and everything you've kind of put your blood, sweat, and tears into, and let's say that you convince that influencer 100% that the value is there. Now they're going to go to the decision maker, and they are not necessarily trained sales professionals, and they don't work for you and don't have your passion around it. They're the ones who are actually going to go make that presentation to the person who makes the call. That's certainly less than ideal. You still can win deals that way, but that's not the way you'd want that design, and maybe you should push harder on it. Don't assume the sale. I gave that example before about the referral that went to our website and then downloaded the materials, and they were preaching that language. I still can't walk in there to that first meeting and say, oh, great, you already know all about us. That's $2,000. You don't ever do that. You always want to use your process and make sure you're showing all the value. In fact, if you're showing enough value, it should be so lopsided at the end that when you get done and they're like, oh, you say, you have any questions? They're like, yeah, how much? And you give it to them. I want those people sitting at that table in the presentation room to be like, yeah, That sounds more than reasonable. Or in the case of a recent prospect I had, we ended up presenting the whole story to this CEO of this big electrical company who does a lot of work in sky rises in Manhattan. And we got done, and he was like, wow, that number is twice as much as the figure that I just had in my head sitting here. He's like, but I want to work with you. I mean, we showed him so much value that he was saying to us, I got to find a way to justify this money, whether I have to move around internal resources or, let me figure this out. And he's like, we're not going to shop around to anybody else. I just have to figure this out. That was a huge win for the perceived value because the number was double. And we signed him. They came on board last month. So, I mean, the stuff, it's real. It's real. And please, the foundation of the beginning of the sales process after you do some qualification is do a proper discovery. And I'm going to give you just a couple quick thoughts on a proper discovery after I take a sip of this water. Sorry about that. Your discovery has two main purposes. I'm not going to go long-winded on this, but just think about these two. Maybe you haven't thought about it this way before. Purpose one is the discovery you typically think of your technical audit, right? And please don't just go in and look around and say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh yeah, 20 computers and I see 2 servers and say, here's your price and I'll put it in a fancy presentation and go and present, like Rob said, to the decision maker. No, the discovery you want to really discover. You want to look at their infrastructure with this thought in mind. You want to determine how much of their current infrastructure aligns to your tech standards. I know on the other side of the world, tech standards are another whole presentation. But you have that stack, the standards, the stack, whatever you call it, that you know is best in class and you can support best, and that you can provide based on that stack, or you can deliver on all the promises you're going to make. So you want to go in and see what is in their world that doesn't match that, and part of your whole proposal and your pitch is going to be to get them to those standards. For everybody's good. It's for their good too. The second thing is you want to talk to the people to learn about what challenges they face with their current IT solutions, current IT provider, current IT infrastructure, and you want to be able to, when you walk out of there, take those challenges and boil them down into implications that get to dollars. Example, John over here in accounting says he's got a slow computer. Oh, that's terrible, John. Jot it down. Who cares? What does it mean you got a slow computer? Oh, I got to reboot this thing 3 times a day. Wow, John, how long does that take? About 10 minutes. 10 minutes each time I reboot. It's like, ooh. So at a minimum, I know he's rebooting 3 times a day. That's 30 minutes a day. That's times, 30 days in a month. You assume John makes at least minimum wage. You multiply that out. You've got a dollar amount now to John's pain of that computer. It's not just a thing. It's a cost now that you can put against the price you're presenting and build the value. All right, I'm going to run out of time here. So what are you presenting, and are you prepared? I don't mean to mock this guy on the screen, right? I'm sure he's a great guy, but if this is the way you're showing up as an IT owner or as a professional salesman to go present to that guy who's the electrical guy who's running skyrises in Manhattan, and this is how I'm showing up, he's never going to see me as a guy who's going to provide strategic leadership and is seated at his table to plan and budget and dream the future of his tech. You got to show up. I'm not saying you have to be, Mr. Slick in the 3-piece suit, but just think about it. It goes back way to earlier slides to where this is the first impression of your company. Nobody knows how good you are technically. How do you want to show up? That could be different depending on where you live, but at least be aware of it. And in the presentation, are you geeking out? Are you talking bits and bytes? Are you talking server this and that? It's like, nah, draw pictures, tell stories. Nobody cares at all about that detail. Nobody, unless you're talking to, a CTO of a huge company or something. Are you just giving a laundry list of your services? Yeah, we do this 24/7. It's like, guess what, guys? A lot of that stuff anyway is MSP kind of 1.0. Everybody does that. We're probably at least on MSP 3.0 or maybe almost 4.0. We move through basic stuff to kind of vendor management, to VCIO stuff, to now we're on to cybersecurity at the edge. Don't just provide that. Make sure your offering relates to their needs. You did a discovery now. Don't just come in and kind of vomit your standard talk on them. Let it relate to the things that you learn were their challenges. Did you differentiate? You had a lot of opportunities in here now to do it because you know more, you learned a lot. Did you use storytelling, as I said, pictures? You know, did you leave an impression and a feeling? Did you illustrate your value? If that point didn't get across, I didn't do a good job here. And the final thought is, did you ask for the business? Because you could be the best at all of this and the most professional and have the best pitch, but I don't know, I think I'm pretty good at this, but I can't recall a time that I finished a presentation and somebody jumped out of their chair and said, yeah, I want to start working with you right now. You always have to ask. And I see a lot of people afraid to ask. This is the close, right? Like, are you ready to move forward? Can we get started? Would you sign the paperwork? What's the date we want to get started? Can we start on the 1st? Don't be afraid to ask for the business after you do all that work. And that is very quickly a lot of stuff to think about on this topic. And I think I had to keep it around 25 minutes. I believe I did that. And Keisha, let me know what happens next.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rob. That was a great presentation. I know I took down a couple of notes for myself, but I want to open it up to anyone on the call. I don't see any questions that have been posted in the chat. Let me double check here real quick. Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat. Does anybody want to come off of mute and ask a particular question? We have about a minute or two left here. Okay, well, I'll ask one of the questions I wrote down. You definitely emphasize the importance of working together in collaboration across teams, whether that's sales, the sales engine, and looking at that team, or marketing, operations, tech. What would you say is the kind of cost to the business if teams do not function in this way?
It's a terrible cost. Because I can give I think a very good example of this in our own organization. I mean, for many years, the sales team would kind of go out and pretty much everybody on our sales team has some kind of technical background, right? That may not be the case moving forward, but that's, some technical background. And what I mean is, maybe, 5 years ago or something, I could kind of install a server. So what would happen is we'd go out and do that discovery, and some of the findings we would put together and the things we would present wouldn't really get passed through the lens of our operations guys too much. Maybe here and there, or maybe we'd have an urgency in sales that they didn't have. So if we asked them for some guidance, it would kind of go way on the back burner under tech issues. So we'd kind of not make things up, but kind of give our best version and then sell that. And then when it comes in the door, and you hand it off to operations, they're like, what these people aren't, I'm like, you said that we would support this? Like, it doesn't align to anything we do. So you get a lot of tension and friction there. It's not the way to go. I mean, to finish that example, now our sales engineers are some of our greatest techs, but they wear that hat and kind of visit in the sales department to go out. They're actually designing the solution that we can present, and we're working on the other part of the discovery about what's not working in the organization. So you really need that, because you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're not working together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Alrighty, we are just at time here, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Rob, thank you so much for this presentation. Thanks for putting together the slides, the content, and being very thoughtful in this presentation and delivery today. We have our final episode with Progressive Computing next week, and Robert will be back on to close out with that 4th and final episode in this Thought Leadership series. Thank you to everyone who was able to join the call live, and thank you to all those who will watch this later on after it's posted in Microsoft Partner Community. Again, we are greatly enthused to partner with Progressive Computing around this Thought Leadership series, and we will see you next Tuesday at the same time for our 4th and final episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.